Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy New Year. I hope 2021 brings you a lot of blessings. I thought I'd start the new year off with a question that got brought forward to me that I thought would make a good video, and that is, Dax, how do you find time to train in so many different martial arts? Do you have a lot of free time on your hands? So, the truth is no. Um, I work almost every single day. I plan for a day off, but nine times out of 10, if somebody calls me for a private lesson, I take it. Um, I have four tips for you guys. If you're training in multiple different arts, like I do, and you want to learn how to blend these together, and perhaps maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe you might be thinking, oh, maybe I should drop this and just specialize in this one thing, but I really like practicing these other arts. What can I do? So, tip number one, okay, is to focus in on the high percentage moves, okay? So, essentially, regardless of what art you practice, right, they all boil down to three branches. You either have striking, grappling, or weapons, right? And within those branches, okay, in competition, we see certain moves rise to the top over and over and over again, okay? High percentage moves, right? For example, in grappling, what's the top submissions we keep seeing over and over and over again? Rear naked chokes, right? Do we see go-go plata? Rarely, okay? But rear naked choke, a guillotine choke, we see it quite often, right? Arm bars, leg locks, important to know as well, okay? Do wrist locks happen? Not as much. Do toe holds happen? Hey, I like learning toe holds. I like wrist locks, you know what I mean? They're a lot of fun. But it's not something that is a high percentage move. In striking, okay, well, let's just take a boxing, punching, right? You say there's a jab, the cross, the hook, the uppercut, the bolo, the overhand right, the Superman punch, all these different punches, okay? The jab, the cross, and the hook are what make up the majority of knockouts, right? You can argue the uppercut too, right? In fencing, okay, when you actually spar, what's the main targets that get hit over and over and over again? It's usually the weapon arm, right? Next will probably be the head, and then you have the deeper targets, right? But it's riskier, right? The deeper you go, the more risk you're putting yourself in as well. So focus in on the high percentage moves, right? Which leads to number two is to focus in on your defense, okay? Gene LaBelle says you can be beat by the stuff that you don't know, right? And Bruce Lee says, I fear not the man who practices one kick or 1,000 kicks one time, but the man who practices one kick 1,000 times, right? Roger Gracie says you don't need to be good at 100 jiu-jitsu techniques. You need to be good at 10, okay? But your defense, okay, how to escape stuff, and this is something me, myself, admittedly, I was not doing, because in the beginning you want to learn cool techniques, right? You want to, it's almost like you're collecting a library of cool techniques that you can do and ways of defeating your opponent, right? But once again, you're probably only going to get really good at a handful of techniques, okay? And what you should prioritize more is instead of accumulating a bunch of cool offensive stuff, you should be drilling your sweeps, your reversals, your submission defense, your head movements, okay, in striking, your parrying, right? You might not be the best striker in the world. You might not have the most power, okay? But knowing how to, slip, right? Duck, pull back, your parries, right? Shoulder rolls, all that stuff, okay, is super important, right? Remember, the goal is self-defense, right? Everyone imagines themselves winning, you know what I mean? But what if the guy is better than you? You know what I mean? Then he who can defend himself better, has the most defenses, right, might be able to stalemate the other guy, right? And get out of that situation. You know, you might not always win the fight, right? But as long as you don't get hurt, you know what I mean, you don't die, you know what I mean, maybe you just stabilize the situation, you know what I mean. The goal is not always to completely hurt your opponent, right? Even though that sometimes that is called for as well. Number 3 is to spar and do the different combat sports. This should be obvious, right? Do your rolling in strikes. Put on your gear, your headgear, mouthpiece, gloves, and go at it, right? Fencing. You gotta fence. There's a lot of people in the weapons community who practice a lot of drills that look really cool on camera. You know what I mean? And it's, I would say in weapons, it's probably more than in striking and grappling. Okay, a lot of people we've pretty much figured out striking and grappling. There's still a lot of people in the weapons community just practicing just craziness as self-defense. The sport sometimes is better than the art. That's what one of my grappling instructors, David Tice, says. Yes, there is more lethal techniques that you can't put into a sport. You know what I mean? Because then, nobody's going to want to train with you. You know what I mean? If you're pile driving people into the mats, you know what I mean? If you're, maybe downward elbowing someone, when they're on the bottom, you know what I mean? Like, those are things, that yes, maybe you want to restrict in actual sport, but the sport helps you grow, and it helps test your abilities. And last, and I feel this is one of the best advices, right? Doesn't matter what I'm doing, right? If it's striking, grappling, or fencing, right? In actual sparring or rolling, right? Putting into these combat sports that I was talking about in point 3, I've noticed a pattern, okay, that all of them have, and that is that the best competitors set up traps. Okay, what do I mean by that? Is you are attacking one way, getting your opponent thinking that you're going to do something, okay, so that he can react the way you want him to react, so that you can beat him with the move that you really had set him up to do, okay? So Bruce Lee says that when you have 2 equal guys who know roughly the same amount of techniques and defenses, the better feinter, the guy who sets up the attack best, will usually win the match. All right, guys, so those are my 4 advices for practicing multiple arts. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, press like and hit that subscription button. Enjoy your new year.